Hello and welcome to Project Home DIY. My name is Christine Gloat, the owner and founder of Project Home and designer of your projects. Let's get it started. It's been a little while if you were one of our monthly subscribers and now you're getting one of our projects in 2025. It's been a few moments before we got to do a project. So back in the groove, this is our first one for 2025 and I'm super excited about it because I love little subtle messages and little things here and there. And I feel like this Let It Be kit does just that. So I am going to do something different that I usually don't do with painting and the kits. I usually stain, but this time I'm going to do something a little bit different and include just painting, which I don't usually do that. I usually stain. But this time I thought I'd do some painting only of it and see where we get, because I kind of am feeling some paint colors here. So I have some of our Project Home paints picked out. This yellow, I don't want to do a super bright yellow because it's kind of like cliche, let it be. So I'm not going to go super bright, but this is a real nice color from one of our past lines. And I'm loving like this brown with it and this blue with it. And here's like another chalky vintagey blue color. So, and I do also have Project Home paint color. I believe this is alpaca. Mine don't have labels because they were samples. So I believe that's alpaca, but I'm going to use some of this, some here and there, and kind of do a mix and match up of paint colors here to get the perfect color scheme going on. So here I'm just going to use some of the blue and the brown for my base colors, and then these are going to be my accent colors. So the frame and that stuff will be a little bit brighter. But so just start by painting your base, your panels, and then painting your frame. Get that started and going, because you'll need to stencil, and in order to stencil you got to have those dry. If you choose to stain, same thing, just get it colored and or sorry, not get it colored, get it stained and drying, because stain can be a little more tricky to paint over with the stencil. Yeah, so go ahead and get to painting your bases and frames, and I'll pop right back on when mine are all finished. All right, I have all the frames painted and the base back pieces. So now I'm going to paint the bee. Okay, for painting the bee, I'm going to use the yellow and just use a dabbing downward motion with your paintbrush for the yellow, and painting something that's laser cut. That just works the absolute best in getting all the pieces covered and not leaving blobs of paint everywhere. So just like this, just load your brush and then go right over to on the bee. Okay, and after I'm done painting the bee like that in a dibble downward motion like this, I don't like the texture that the brush leaves, and so with a unloaded drier brush, I do go back and forth over the top to smooth it out a little bit. There might be some blobs, so just kind of smooth them out. I don't worry too much about the sides. I know they're dark and this is lighter. You can paint the sides, and the way I would do it is downward, just like that, but at an angle. So like this, if you wanted to paint the sides. But if you don't mind, don't worry about painting them. They are just fine. So let's see these two colors together. That's exactly perfect. Okay, I'm going to set the bee down, and I'm going to put one more coat on the light brown. Oh, actually, no, I'm not, because I really like this wood grain that came through. It's super pretty, so I'm going to leave it like that, and we're going to stencil. So stenciling, very important step is getting your sanding block and sanding. So you have to sand before you stencil. The paint has brought up wood grain and made it grainy and not even an even surface. If you put a sticker on it and pour water over it, which is essentially what you're doing with the stencil, all the paint will leak underneath and you'll have blobs and ucky lines. So you don't want that. So sand and make it smooth. Okay, so there's it's sanded, and I wiped it off. Make sure it doesn't have any dust left on it. There, it's all done. Okay, so you have to be really careful about the colors that you choose to do the honeycomb in and the let it be, because they have to be contrasting enough to be able to read them. So I'm going to save the dark brown for the let it words over the top of that, and I'm going to use the blue on this honeycomb. The edges of this sign will not show because they'll be behind the frame, so you don't have to worry too much about where to place it. But take your stencil off the backing, place it down. You can watch the lines right here and line them up so the honeycomb is straight on there. Rub it down so it's flat, no bumps, no anything, and it's stuck down. It's nice and smooth. And I'm going to use the blue to paint on here. The only reason these stencils will ever leak is if you don't have a smooth surface or you're using too thin of paint. So those are the only reasons they should ever leak. They're very foolproof if you use them correctly, which just have a smooth surface, and use any kind of paint. You do not have to use chalk paste. That is, yeah, no, you don't have to use chalk paste. That any kind of paint works. I'm using an acrylic paint. It doesn't matter what kind of paint you use. So don't fall for that. You can't use too much paint. Like, I could literally take this entire glob and put it on there. It's not going to bleed. Using too much paint will not make it bleed. Just an uneven, not smooth surface. And that the sticker side not getting stuck down, it will make it bleed. That's the only thing. So once you have the whole thing covered, peel it off. Do not wait for it to dry. Peel it off wet. If you wait for it to dry, the paint's going to stick to the mesh and it's not going to stick to your sign. So there's the honeycomb. Very subtle. I love it. And there's no bleeding. Zero. It doesn't bleed. I'm telling you, they work. Oh, this is reusable. So you can go get this wet, wash it off, don't crumble it up. Wash it off, dry it face down on a towel. So the sticky side's up, it'll get re-sticky again, and you can stick it to your backer and reuse it. About 3 to 5 times you can reuse them, just depending on how well they stay sticky. I'm going to put this back in the air to dry. Okay, Here's my brown frame. Almost. Yeah, it's pretty dry. There's just a tad bit wet, but the surface is dry. So I'm going to sand it just a little bit. Wipe that off. Set it to the side. I'm going to sand this guy because this is where the bee is going to go. Again, wipe it off. If you don't have an apron, you should get an apron because you can wipe it off all the time. We have lots of them in our store. Just go to our website and type in apron and there's lots. You can find them. All right. So to attach your frame, I'm just going to attach the frame now. I don't have to wait for the bee, but just using hot glue, fit it in there first. Okay, that's a good fit. And oops, there is some wet paint. I'm not giving this enough dry time, but it's okay. It's just the inside of this frame that's wet. It won't hurt it. I'll just wipe it a little bit. Okay, now I'm taking my hot glue and just putting hot glue in each of the 4 corners. And maybe some right down the middle of each piece. Don't put too much because it'll glob out, but if it does, we can fix that. Okay, so then just put your sign in and hold it till it's dry or cooled, I guess. There it is. Okay, there's the sign. I'm going to leave it face down for just a little bit to keep letting that hot glue cool. Now, to check and make sure this is dry and I can do my let it be, I'm going to sand just a tiny bit. Or sorry, not let it be, but let it. Wording, I'm going to do that. You do have a frame to keep in mind about when you are putting this on. So you can stick your stencil down. This is a nice cut edge, a factory cut edge, so you can see it's even and lined up nicely. You can take your frame and place that in there and just make sure that your words aren't being covered up and that you like that placement. And I did, so I'm going to smush it down good. And for this, I'm using the dark brown. A little bit big of a paintbrush for this stencil. Okay, so that let it part is done. Peel it off. And it's nice and contrasting. There it is. Okay, now I'm going to turn this one over. Do just a tad bit of sanding on it to smooth it out. Okay, same thing, hot glue gun, 4 corners. My glue stick is running out. Here's a little tip. Put glue on the end, glue the 2 sticks together, and it won't dump out on you. I know, it's a good one. All those times you have your hands full and one shot to use the glue and it falls out the bag. Happens every time. That one's not working nicely like I wanted it to, but it stayed in. All right, stick in that sign. And I love that just the bee will be yellow. I didn't want like super, super bright, just a nice little touch. Let me see if I have, yeah. If you have an X-Acto knife, you can take it and clean out those corners. If there's hot glue, just cut it and then it'll come right out. I need tweezers. Would be really nice. I guess I have this tool. I can pick it out with. Oh, there. I didn't have it cut well enough. So if your hot glue came out at all, just cut it with an X-Acto knife and you can peel it out. Easy enough. Okay, that one's good. Couple little blobs. The bee. All right, a tiny bit of sanding on that. If you happen to break off a tentacle, they're easily glued back on. Don't fret. And since it's on a flat surface, it works well. Okay, so put hot glue only in the areas that are big, the bigger areas. And run your tip along the piece of wood because then it doesn't leave stringers. And then just place your bee. There it is. All finished. So our first project of 2025. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did and getting kind of back into the DIY groove. I know it's hard to find time to do these things, but any little bit of DIY in your life is a great thing. So try and make that time. Congratulations for doing that, because if you got to the end of this video, clearly you did. So thanks for joining me. And we have a few other projects planned. Probably in another month, we'll have another one. So keep your eyes peeled and stay crafty. Talk to you later.